Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Mrs. P. Haritha from the Department of Pharmaceutics. Today, we are going to have a webinar on Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. So, before actually going into this particular topic, we just have to see what is the need or what is the main necessity for having all these acts and rules. So this Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, it is actually framed in order to ensure the safety as well as well-being of the public by regulating the various aspects of drugs and cosmetics, especially in India. Right? Why do we require the acts like this? Because it is always essential to address the growing need for standardization as well as control over the pharmaceutical products. For such control over the pharmaceutical products, this particular Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, why we call it as a Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940 is it was framed in the year 1940, right? So in today's webinar, we are going to see about what are all the objectives of this particular Drugs and Cosmetics Act, and what are the legal definitions, the licenses, penalties, and also about in detail about the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, what is the import of the drugs, manufacturing as well as the offenses we are going to see, right? So first coming to the objectives, we have various objectives. So the first objective is to regulate the import, manufacture, distribution, and sale of drugs and cosmetics. So we will see one uh, point after the other. So regulating the import. What do you mean by regulating the import? It is nothing but this act ensures that only the approved and quality tested drugs and cosmetics are imported into India so that you can prevent the entry of harmful, substandard, or even non-compliant products, even the non-compliant products into the country. And also, like manufacturing, coming to the manufacturing here, it sets a very stringent conditions for manufacturing facilities to ensure the compliance with the good manufacturing practices. You must be studied in all your industrial pharmacy and other subjects about the good manufacturing practices. So in this manufacturing area, it is going to take care that how the manufacturing facilities are being com complied with that of the good manufacturing practices, and also licensing authorities who regularly inspect the facilities like manufacturing units to ensure that they meet the prescribed standards. And then coming to the distribution and the sale of the drugs, here it ensures the proper storage, handling, and sale through licensed distributors as well as the pharmacies. And also it regulates who can dispense the drugs, like for example, pharmacists, so that other than the pharmacist, if any other people are present in the duty of dispensing the drugs, there may be a chance of misusing the drugs, or there may be chance of not using the or not dispensing the drugs properly. And then the second objective is to ensure the safety, efficacy, and quality of the drugs. So what do you mean by safety here? The drugs must not have any risk to the patient, and also the testing is mandatory to ensure that the products are safe for the human use. Then coming to the efficacy, efficacy is nothing but the drugs have to possess the action that they are intended to. That means if I have given the anti-diabetic drug, it should have the capacity to lower the blood sugar levels. If I have given anti-hypertensive drugs, it should have the capability to reduce the blood pressure. Okay, so the drugs must perform as they are intended to do so. And the clinical trials and preclinical studies are conducted to validate their effectiveness. And then coming to the quality of the drug, it should have the compliance with that of the quality standards, which ensures that the drugs meets the specifications like regarding their strength, purity, as well as the stability. And also there should be continuous monitoring through quality control as well as the assurance processes. So this is the second objective. Coming to the third objective, to prevent substandard, misbranded, adulterated, and spurious drugs. We will discuss in detail about all these in the coming slides. So the substandard drugs are nothing but the drugs failing to meet the quality specifications, so that this act mandates the strict action against the manufacturers who are producing such products. And then misbranded drugs are inaccurate or misleading labeling will be there on that. So this act ensures the labeling contains the correct dosage, warnings, as well as usage instructions. And then coming to the adulterated drugs, the drugs containing harmful or inferior substances, then they are called as the adulterated drugs. So severe penalties will be there for such practices, including the license cancellation as well as the prosecution. Prosecution is nothing but filing a case in the police station and which goes to the court. And then spurious drugs are nothing but the fake drugs are called as the spurious drugs, which exactly resemble the original one. So this act has the provision to tackle this type of all the substandard, misbranded, adulterated, as well as the spurious drugs. And the last objective that we have here is the promote public health by controlling the drug-related practices. So here it tells about what is the rational use of the medicines. That is, how far you can use the over-the-counter drugs, how far you can use the prescription drugs. That is called as the rational use of the drugs. And prohibition of harmful practices. Like it enforces some bans on certain harmful drugs and cosmetics, which leads to the severe health problems of the public. And also it helps in awareness campaigns, like it ensures the public are informed about the risks that are associated with the unsafe usage of the fake products or unsafe usage of the products. Okay, so we have all these four objectives of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, right? And then moving on to the next slide, it is the legal definition. So, as per the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, what are the legal definitions of various words? The first one is the drug. Generally, we, the pharmacy people or the people who are having the knowledge about the drug, they know that drug means medicine, which is having a therapeutic activity. It is called as a drug. But in normal, if we use it as a drug means it is either like any drugs which are used, which because we use the word called as a drug abuse, right? So like any narcotic drugs like that, psychotropic drugs, they comes under the drugs. So there is nothing wrong in using the word drug, because here it drugs means it includes medicine, substances for diagnosis, treatment, prevention of the disease. So if any material which is doing all these activities, then it is called as a drug, right? So the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, it provides the clear definitions in order to ensure the proper interpretation and enforcement of the law. And so for examples for the drugs, we have antibiotics, okay, and also we have analgesics. In general, we call them as a painkillers, right? And also vaccines, we have all these comes under the drugs. And then the second definition is a cosmetic. So what do you mean by cosmetic? The articles which are intended for cleansing, beautifying, or altering the appearance, they are called as a cosmetics. Like for example, you'll be having the skincare products, right? And you will be having hair care products like shampoos, conditioners, dyes, etc. And then makeup items, you'll be having lipsticks, eyeliners, okay, mascara, all those things. So what is the importance of this particular word is it covers the safety and labeling standards in order to prevent harm from the cosmetic use. And then the next definition we have is the adulterated drug. So the drug substance which contain inferior or harmful substance, then it is called as a adulterated drug. So, for example, the medications which contain the toxic impurities or contaminants because of the poor manufacturing practices, then they are considered as a adulterated drug. And then the fourth definition that we have is a misbranded drug. So misbranded drug is nothing but false claims or the insufficient labeling. So the packaging does not meet the prescribed legal requirements by putting all, they does not include all the information about the contents that are present in that particular container. And it also lacks the proper warnings or usage directions, or even it fails to display the ingredients. So for example, a drug labeled with exaggerated therapeutic claims or missing critical safety information, then it comes under the misbranded drug. And then we have spurious drug. So it is manufactured under false name or resembles another product deceptively. It is called as a spurious drug. So that means it is manufactured under a false name, or else it imitates or resembles another drug, deceiving that means you are cheating. Deceiving is nothing but cheating. Okay, cheating the consumers in order to believe that it is a genuine one, and it is produced by unauthorized entities or even the unlicensed facilities. For example, there are certain fake antibiotics which are labeled as a popular branded ones, but they contain no active ingredient. Even in normal days, you may see uh, there will be like Google company is there. So other people, they just want to represent it with the same style. They will be writing GOOGLE, which is not actually the Google. So they are just deceiving the customers, showing that they are the Google. See, when we just see the particular logo, oh, this is Google, we feel it as. But there they have kept one O extra, which we doesn't see, which we cannot observe that one, right? So that is called as a spurious one. And then import is nothing but bringing the drugs or cosmetics into India from any other country. It is called as a import. So why we have to know about these definitions? Because these definitions, they act as a backbone for the regulatory framework, which ensures that every entity that is involved in the drugs and cosmetics industry is held accountable. That means it is not left as such. You have to be accountable for each and everything that comes under the pharmaceutical and cosmetic industry. And also, by understanding these terms, it helps in identifying the violations as well as enforcing the law effectively. And then moving on, we have to see about the import of drugs and cosmetics. So how, with what procedure we can import the drugs and cosmetics into our country? So the import of drugs and cosmetics into India, it will be tightly regulated. It is a very tightly regulated process under Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. And these rules or these regulations, they ensure that whatever the products that you are importing, they meet the safety, quality, and efficacy standards. So why they have to meet all these standards? Because all these standards, if they meet, then it is protecting the public health, because it is directly influencing the public health. That is why we are concerned about safety, quality, and efficacy of the products, right? So these regulations are very important in order to ensure the safety, quality, as well as efficacy standards. So under this, there are two conditions, the key conditions, that is compliance, whether they are compliance with the prescribed standards, and what are the necessary licenses for the importing. Okay, so first we'll see compliance with the prescribed standards. So what are the regulatory standards? The drugs must adhere to the specifications which are outlined in the pharmacopoeias like Indian pharmacopoeia, British pharmacopoeia, or US pharmacopoeia. And whereas cosmetics, they must meet the standards that are specified by BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. Okay, BIS is called as the Bureau of Indian Standards. And it ensures that imported products are safe for use and they are effective in their intended function, right? And then what are the necessary licenses that are required for the import? Why do we actually require this license? Because every importer, they should have a license from the regulatory authority called as the CDSCO. What is the CDSCO? This is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. So every importer, they should contain a license from the CDSCO. First, they should submit an application to the DCGI. Who is DCGI? Drug Controller General of India, along with that of the required documents such as product details, manufacturing certifications, test reports, everything, it has to be included along with that of the application, and the application has to be given to the regulatory authority, right? And then once they are assure, that is, once they ensure that all the documents that are provided are correct, then they will ensure only the authorized and verified entities that can be imported into the country. That is either the drugs or cosmetics, only the approved things they have to be allowed to be imported into India, right? And then coming to the types of the import licenses that we have, it is Form 10 and Form 11. Form 10 is for the new drugs and Form 11 is for the personal use. So what do you mean by a new drug? The new drug is nothing but which is not yet approved for sale in India. Okay. So not approved for sale in India. So those are called as a new drugs, right? And these may include like formulations, dosage forms, or combinations of the existing drugs. And what is the main purpose of this Form 10 is it allows the pharmaceutical companies to import the new drugs for the clinical trials, marketing after the regulatory approval, and also testing or analysis before official release into the Indian market. So, at what conditions this particular Form 10 can be applied? So, the first, importer must submit the safety and efficacy data, including the results from the clinical trials which are conducted either in abroad or within India, and also they should get the approval from DCGI is mandatory. So, for example, if a company want to import a new anti-cancer drug for the clinical trials in India, they should submit the Form 10. And then coming to the Form 11, it is importing for personal use. So it always enables the individuals to import small quantities of the drugs for personal use or sometimes for the non-commercial purposes. What do you mean by personal use? If a person is suffering from a rare disease or a life-threatening disease, and those medications are not available in India, they have to get it from abroad. So that is called as a personal use. And also the personal use is nothing but if you want to use it for the educational purposes. Like if you're doing a project in your college and if you want to do that work on that particular drug, that is called as an educational purpose. Or even the research purpose. If you want to perform any research on that, for that purpose also you can import the drugs from other country. For example, if a patient requires a rare medication which is not available in India for a chronic condition, then they can apply to import that drug by filling the Form 11. Okay. So here this licensing system, it not only ensures the safe and effective usage of the drugs and cosmetics uh, in the Indian market, but also they will be taking care like whether they can be like whether they can sell that in the commercial or the personal use. And by categorizing the licenses, this act will provide flexibility and also alongside maintaining the strict quality to prevent the misuse and misuse the import of substandard products, right? This is about the import of drugs and cosmetics. Then coming to the manufacturing of drugs and cosmetics. So what is the manufacturing of drugs and cosmetics? So here this particular act ensures that the drugs and cosmetics are manufactured in India. They meet the highest standards of again safety, efficacy, and quality. And to achieve this, the strict regulations have to be maintained where the manufacturing is being carried out. Okay. So the first one is mandatory licenses as per the Act. So no person or industry, they can manufacture the drugs or cosmetics without a valid license that is issued by the relevant state drug control authority or sometimes CDSCO for specific categories. Okay. And there are different types of licenses which are issued on the nature of the product. Like if it is a drug, then different type of license will be issued. If it is a cosmetic, then different type. If it is a biological, then different type of the license will be issued. So coming to the types of the manufacturing licenses, we have three types like Form 25, Form 28 and Form 32. So Form 25 is for to manufacture the drugs other than those drugs that are specified in Schedule X and C. And then Form 28, it is a license for manufacturing drugs that are specified in Schedule C and C1. So what are the drugs that are scheduled under C and C1? They are the vaccines and sera. And then Form 32, it is for the, it is licensed to manufacture the cosmetics. Okay. So how they have to give this particular licenses, how they obtain the licenses. Again, they have to apply for DCGI to CDCSO, and then the application process proceeds. Okay. And then compliance with good manufacturing practices, that is the GMP. So there will be a set of guidelines that ensures the products are consistently produced and controlled according to the quality standards. So for what the GMP will be there? The GMP will be there for the personnel. Okay, that means trained and qualified staff for all aspects of production and quality control. And then for facilities and equipment, like properly designed, maintained, and sanitized to prevent the contamination. And then documentation. Okay, so detailed records of the manufacturing process, quality checks, and distribution for the traceability, everything should be there in the documentation. And also the quality control, like a rigorous testing of the raw materials and in-process samples and finished products will also be done under this. That is nothing but they are going to check whether they are in par with the good manufacturing practices or not. And then manufacturer site approval by licensing authority. So whenever you apply an application for getting for the manufacturing of either drugs or the cosmetics, there will be an inspection, and after the inspection only the approval will be given. So the manufacturing facility, it has to be inspected and approved by the licensing authority before a license is granted for them. And then they have to show what is the adequate space that is required for the manufacturing of those products. And even after initial approval, the facilities have to be subjected for the periodic inspections in order to ensure that they are continuously maintaining that particular standards. It is not like they are not maintaining the standards after completing or after getting approval and after completing the inspection. No, for how long they are going to continue the manufacture of those products, they have to perform all these inspections and they have to maintain all these standardized conditions. Okay, so the conditions for the manufacturing under this Drugs and Cosmetics Act, it ensures that all the products that are released into the market, they have to meet the stringent quality and the safety requirements, right? So compliance with the licensing and the good manufacturing practices, it not only protects the customers, but also helps the manufacturers maintain their reputation and avoid the legal penalties, right? So now the next one is types of licenses. Okay, so in the syllabus, we have two types of licenses, like loan license and the labeling license. So by seeing this particular word, you can understand that a license have to be taken in order to apply for a loan. That is called as a loan license. So it is a type of manufacturing license, we call it as. Okay. We call it as a manufacturing license, which is used to, which is issued to any company that does not own the manufacturing facilities, but it always have the intention to manufacture the drugs using the facilities of another license to manufacture. Just like if we don't have a new house, we will be taking it for a rent, right? So before taking it for a rent, we will be applying or we will be giving the advance like that. In the same way here, or else if you want to buy a home, if you're not having the amount with you, then you will be going for the loan and then you will be buying the house. Okay. So this particular loan license, it mainly enables the companies, particularly the startups or small scale industries. Okay. And so that they can enter the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry without the heavy financial burden of setting up their own production facilities. So who all can benefit here? The startup people can benefit, research institutions can get benefited, as well as the small scale businesses. And how the application has to be given and what are the documents that are required and inspection, it is like you have to apply it for the CDSCO, providing the details about manufacturer and whose facility they want to use. And then the documentations like what is the agreement between the loan licensee and the licensed manufacturer, and the details of the manufacturing site and the infrastructure, and then compliance with the GMP, everything has to be provided. And then we have is the repacking license. So the repacking license is nothing but it is issued to the companies or entities which are involved in the repacking or relabeling the bulk drugs or drug formulations into the smaller units for distribution or sale within the like without altering the quality, composition, or therapeutic efficacy of the product. Okay, that is called as a repacking license. For example, nowadays, they are calling it as a third party selling. Suppose you want some jewelry, you have seen it in one shop, and now you have taken from them, and then later on, you are going to sell it to the next people. So that is here it is called as a repacking license. So this repacking license, it is for the repacking or relabeling the bulk drugs without altering the quality. You don't have any authority of changing the quality of that particular product. So it requires approval from the licensing authorities like CDSCO again. Okay. And here the proofs that have to be submitted or the documents that they have to be submitted are proof of origin and quality of the drug product, details of the packaging materials and the labels, and agreement with the supplier or manufacturer of the bulk drugs. All these documents have to be provided. So these are the two types of the licenses that we have under Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So now we have offenses and offenses under this Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. So here, the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, it always outlines various offenses to prevent the sale and distribution of unsafe and the ineffective drugs and cosmetics. So these offenses, they ensure that the public health is protected by penalizing the non-compliance with the act. Okay. So the first one is manufacture or sale of misbranded, adulterated or spurious drugs. We already have seen what are the misbranded, what means by the misbranded, adulterated, or the spurious drugs. So, if a drug is labeled to cure a multiple disease without having a scientific evidence, then it is called as a misbranded drug, where the punishment is imprisonment up to 2 years or payment of 1 lakh. This is the punishment for the first time offenders. If you are repeating, then the punishment would also increase, right? And then adulterated drugs are which contain some harmful or inferior substances. It is called as a adulterated. So, for example, antibiotics contaminated with harmful bacteria during the production, then they are considered as a adulterated one. So, for this, 10 years of imprisonment or 10 lakhs of the fine. Okay. And then spurious drugs are the fake drugs which are intended to have the like the manufacturer would claim in a false manner. And here, for example, a drug labeled as a popular brand, but it does not contain any active ingredient. It is called as a spurious drug. And here, either imprisonment for lifetime or 10 lakhs of amount is the fine. And then what is the offense? The offense is manufacturing without a valid license. So manufacturing without a valid license is nothing but to manufacture the drugs or cosmetics without getting the required license from the regulatory authority. So why you have to get the approval from regulatory authority? Because they have to check whether the production is happening under good manufacturing practices or not. For example, there is a small company which produces syrups or ointments. If it is not having the license, even though they are following all the rules and regulations, if they don't have the license, then it is called as a offense. And then import without necessary permits. We have seen earlier about Form 10 and 11, right? For new drugs and the drugs for personal use. So importing drugs or cosmetics without the required permits, it is also considered as a serious offense. So importing of the banned drugs, or importing unapproved new drugs without prior permission, or failing to meet the labeling and packaging requirements. All these comes under the importing without necessary permits. And there are certain other offenses also, like sale of expired drugs. Okay, and also non-compliance with the labeling. Okay, and also we have non-reporting of the ADRs. All these also comes under the offenses, right? So for these offenses, they mainly emphasize the importance of compliance with the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, so that to ensure the public health and safety. So the penalties for the non-compliance includes, if it is the adulterated or a spurious drug, then imprisonment up to life and fine up to 10 lakhs, or 3 multiplied, okay, 3 times the value of the goods. That means if you have prepared 1 lakh of the goods, 3 times, that is 3 lakhs fine you have to give. And then the next one is manufacturing without a license. It is imprisonment up to 5 years and also fine up to 1 lakh. Okay. So these are the penalties that we give when any type of the offense is being seen in the manufacturing as well as importing of the drugs. And then role of the regulatory authorities, like the regulatory authorities, they play a major role in ensuring the compliance with the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. Their responsibilities, it includes the licensing, okay, the duty of giving the approval and the license. And then it also consists of the monitoring and enforcing the laws which are related to the drugs and cosmetics. So the first and foremost one, the regulatory body that we have is the CDSCO. So this CDSCO here, it mainly looks about the import and the approval of the new drugs. Okay. So approval of new drugs, it is here. It generally checks the clinical trials and grants approval for the new drugs as well as the vaccines. And also it is going to control the import of the substances from other countries into India. Like for example, CDSCO's role in fast tracking the vaccine approval during COVID-19 pandemic. This is the example, like where the CDSCO has taken the charge in approving the vaccine. And then the second regulatory body that we have is the state drug control authorities. So here the main role of the state drug control authorities is, these authorities, they operate at the state level and they are responsible for enforcing the act within their respective jurisdiction. Okay. So their key responsibilities, they include issuing the licensing for the manufacturing and sale, and inspections and audits. They're also responsible for the inspections as well as the audits, and also enforcement actions. So what do you mean by enforcement actions? Enforcement actions are nothing but they seize the substandard or unapproved products, and also they will penalize for the offenses that they see. So for example, a state authority shutting down a facility for violating a good manufacturing practice, it comes under the state drug control authorities, right? So the collaboration between this central unit, that is CDSCO, and the state drug control authorities, they ensure a robust regulatory framework which ensures the public health as well as the safety. So now coming to the recent amendments and the key highlights that we have under this act is, see here, the pharmaceutical and the cosmetic industries are rapidly evolving. Okay. Today, if you have some 100 drugs, by tomorrow you are getting them as 110. Okay. I doesn't mean that within one day you are getting 10 new drugs, but since 15 long years or since 20 long years, the work is being done on them. and immediately tomorrow it is being released into the market. So as this cosmetic and the pharmaceutical industry is evolving rapidly, it always necessary to keep updated this particular Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So the recent amendments, they always aim to strengthen the regulatory works and also to adapt the new challenges. Okay, so what is the first amendment that they have is the stricter penalties for the offenses. If you are not following the proper manufacturing unit, if you are not following the good manufacturing practices, if you are importing the drugs without having a proper license, all these are called as the offenses, and the penalties for these offenses has become very strict nowadays, which is considered as one of the amendment. So what is the purpose of these amendments is nothing but in order to deter the violation as well as to enhance the compliance. So what are the key changes that we have seen here is they increased the fines and the imprisonment terms for offenses, especially like manufacturing of the spurious as well as the adulterated drugs. And also they enhanced the accountability for repeated offenders. See, once if you do a mistake, then it is a mistake. Okay. So for the second time, if you're doing, definitely that is an offense. You should not do the mistake by knowingly. Unknowingly doing, yes, you have to face the punishment, but knowingly if you're doing something, then definitely it is an offense. And the second amendment that we have is a enhanced focus on the quality control. So to ensure that products will meet the stringent quality and the safety standards, this particular amendment has been taken. So the main implementation that we can see here is the mandatory compliance with the updated good manufacturing practices, and also they have increased the frequency of inspections as well as audits in all the manufacturing units. So these are the amendments. Coming to the key highlights, we have regulation of the online pharmacies and incorporation of medical devices rule. So regulation of the online pharmacies is nothing but the increase in the number of e-pharmacies. They have brought new challenges, including the sale of unregulated as well as the spurious drugs online. Okay, because once it is an online, it becomes very easy. During COVID-19 pandemic, in the initial days, it used to be very tough for us to go for the uh, diagnostic test. Okay, but later on it has come like we have got the testing kit, like the domestic testing kit, that you can get the kit to your home and you can test it by yourself. Okay, so that is like as we have been keep on improving the technology, these type of things are also coming to us, right? And the online here, the key provisions that would be provided under regulation of these online pharmacies is they must register with CDSCO and the strict monitoring of sales to ensure the compliance with the prescription drug laws, and also heavy penalties will be there for selling the unapproved or banned drugs online. Okay, and then incorporation of medical devices rules, it is to bring the medical devices under the regulatory framework of the art. So what do you mean by medical devices? Which can be used for diagnosis, treatment, as well as curing of any disease. These are called as a medical devices. Stethoscope is a medical device. Syringe is a medical device. Catheter is a medical device. Okay, all these are considered as a medical devices. So now they are categorized as a drugs for regulatory purposes, and also the standards for manufacturing, importing, sale, and clinical investigations of all these medical devices, like even the pacemakers, diagnostic kits, surgical instruments, everything should come under the compliance within these rules. So these are recent amendments and the highlights. They show that the government's commitment to strengthen the regulatory oversight and also to adapt to the technological advancements in the healthcare, right? So these are all the things that we have studied in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So first we have seen what is the importance of the act in ensuring the public health, like what is its primary goal, because and the key highlights includes it prevents the distribution of harmful as well as the standard products, and The next one we have seen is the what are the consequences for the non-compliance, that is, what are the penalties for the offenses. And the penalties have been included heavy fines, imprisonment, cancellation of the licenses, reputation damage for the companies, leading to the loss of the consumer trust. Everything comes under the penalties. And for example, here, if a company has not been compliance with that of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act by producing all the adulterated and spurious drugs, and once the license is cancelled, then at no time again he can open his company. Okay. And what are all the complaints and ethical practices we have seen? And so all this particular Drugs and Cosmetics Act, it is not just like a legal obligation, but also you should consider this as a moral responsibility in order to ensure the public health as well as the safety. So by adhering to all these ethical practices, the stakeholders, they can contribute to a healthier, safer society, and also that ensures the sustainability of the business. So it is not only good for the sake of public, but also it is always useful for the sake of the companies who are really producing these products, right? So this particular Drugs and Cosmetics Act, it is very important for you, both in terms of the examination point of view and also at the same time for the competitive exams also. So not only your semester exam, because from the jurisprudence subject, you will be getting at least 4 to 5 objectives in all the competitive exams, let it be GPAT or NIPER. So this particular subject is very important, and within this particular subject, this particular topic is very, very important. Okay. I hope you all have understood about today's topic, where we have seen all the topics that were related here. And also, like, we have discussed what are all the offenses, what are all the penalties that we had, what are the definitions. Okay, we have covered all these topics. And if you have any doubts regarding the topic that we have discussed today, you're all welcome to please post your comments or doubts in the comment section below, so that we will get back to you with the answers. Okay, thank you so much for joining for today's webinar.